The grand ballroom of the St. Regis glittered under the weight of 1,000 crystals, a shimmering galaxy of wealth and influence. A hush fell over the crowd as the host, beaming under the stage lights, raised a microphone. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, the chairman of Higher New Media, the man of the hour, President Huobin, will select one lucky lady from the audience for our opening dance. A powerful spotlight sliced through the dim, perfumed air, beginning its dramatic sweep across a sea of couture gowns and expertly coiffed hair. It skimmed over heiresses and starlets, each holding their breath, a silent prayer on their perfectly glossed lips. Then, it stopped, not on a socialite draped in diamonds, but on Tankia. She stood near the catering table, a glass of water in hand, her face devoid of the heavy makeup that painted every other woman in the room. In her simple, elegant but unremarkable black dress, she was an island of stark reality in an ocean of curated fantasy. A wave of whispers rippled through the hall. Who is she? Is that a rental? She didn't even bother with lipstick. Kia froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The brilliant white light was blinding, pinning her in place. The host's voice boomed. "Congratulations, Ms. Please, come to the stage." Flustered, she instinctively took a step back, her cheeks burning with unwelcome attention. When a path cleared for her, she shook her head, her voice barely a whisper but picked up by a nearby mic. Oh no. The clinking of glasses echoed in Fife's small, cozy apartment, a cheerful sound that felt like a promise. "To Tankir," Fife declared, her eyes sparkling over the rim of her wine glass. The first woman to survive Huobin's Ice Age personality for more than a week and land a golden-collar job doing it. Kia laughed, the warmth of the cheap red wine spreading through her. For the first time in ages, she felt a genuine, unburdened optimism. "It's just an assistant job." Fi, an assistant job. Girl. The entire internet disagrees. Fi swiped through her phone, turning the screen to show Kia a trending social media topic. "Mysterious Cinderella tames IC CEO. They've already made fan edits of you two at the gala. You're practically a celebrity." Kia's smile faltered as she stared at the screen, a strange unease settling in her stomach. Before she could comment, Fife's phone buzzed violently on the table. The caller ID read "annoying little brother." Fife answered with an exasperated sigh, but her expression quickly morphed into one of pure panic. "What? Where are you? How much?" The cheerful atmosphere evaporated, replaced by thick, suffocating dread. Fife's brother was on the line, his voice a frantic whisper. He'd been detained by loan sharks over a gambling debt. The sum was staggering. 20 minutes later, Kia stood with Fife before a dilapidated building in a forgotten part of the city. The air was heavy with the smell of damp concrete and decay. A world away from the gleaming steel and glass of the IG Group headquarters, her earlier celebration felt like a distant, foolish dream. They pushed open a heavy iron door and descended into a dimly lit basement that resembled a makeshift antique shop, filled with dusty furniture and shadowy figures. "Looking for someone?" a gruff voice called out. Before Fife could answer, a familiar, boyish face popped out from behind a large porcelain vase. Surprise, her brother, along with a few of his classmates, erupted in laughter. The relief that washed over Kia was so intense it made her dizzy, but it was immediately followed by a surge of white-hot anger. "Are you insane?" she yelled, taking a step toward him. As she moved, her bag swung wide, catching the edge of the tall, ornate vase beside her. Time seemed to slow as the vase wobbled, teetered for a heart-stopping second, and then crashed to the concrete floor with a sickeningly final shatter. Silence. The laughter died. The owner of the shop, a man with a face like carved granite, emerged from the back room, his eyes fixed on the pile of blue and white shards. "That," he said, his voice dangerously calm, was a late Qing dynasty replica. 150,000 yuan. 150,000. The number echoed in the sudden silence of Kia's mind. A death knell for the bright future she had toasted just an hour ago. No amount of pleading or arguing made a difference. An hour later, her hands shaking, Kia signed a compensation agreement. The black ink a testament to her new prison. She had 1 year to pay all back. The bravado she'd worn like armor in Huo Bin's office was gone, replaced by a cold, silent resolve. That job, that humiliating, demanding job, was no longer a stepping stone. It was a lifeline. The next day, the sterile, intimidating atmosphere of the IG group boardroom felt like a continuation of her nightmare. She'd been summoned without explanation, her heart pounding a nervous rhythm against her ribs. Huo Bin sat at the head of the long, polished table, his face an unreadable mask of indifference. Seated to his right was a woman with an air of cold authority that dwarfed even his mother. Madame Huo. "We have a serious matter to discuss," Madame Huo began, her voice cutting through the tense silence. She gestured to a large screen on the wall. An image appeared, causing Kia's blood to run cold. It was a photograph of her, taken from a distance, deep in conversation with Zhao Liang, the general manager of their fiercest competitor. The photo was carefully framed to look clandestine, intimate. "This was taken 2 nights ago," Madame Huo announced, her gaze pinning Kia to her spot. "The same night our bid for the Southern District project was leaked to Zhao Liang's company." "Explain yourself, Miss Tang." Kia's mind raced, trying to make sense of the accusation. She remembered the encounter, a brief, chance meeting at a coffee shop where Zhao Liang had tried to poach her. She had refused him outright. "Madame Huo, that photo is completely misleading. I ran into Mr. Zhao by chance. He offered me a job, and I turned him down." That was the entire conversation. A wave of skeptical murmurs rippled through the board members. One of them scoffed. "A convenient story. And we're just supposed to believe you." Her eyes darted to Huo Bin, a silent plea for him to intervene, to believe her. He had tested her, tormented her. But he knew her work ethic. He knew her dedication. For a fleeting moment, she saw a flicker of conflict in his dark eyes, a tightening in his jaw. But it was extinguished as quickly as it appeared. He looked away from her, his voice devoid of all emotion. "Company rules are absolute." The fluorescent lights of the IG group office hummed, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside Tang Kia. Liu Xiang leaned against her desk, his expression a careful mask of concern. "You have to understand, Kia," he said, his voice a low, confidential murmur. "Huo Bin isn't just difficult. He suffers from a form of psychological amnesia, trauma-induced. He has gaps, significant ones. It's why he's so volatile. He's fighting a battle no one else can see." The words hung in the air, reframing every cruel remark, every impossible demand. The CEO who had publicly humiliated her wasn't just an arrogant tyrant. He was a man adrift in his own memory. That night, when Huo Bin didn't return to the office and his phone went unanswered, a knot of unease tightened in Kia's stomach. Using the tracker on his company phone, a device she previously considered a tool of his obsessive control, she found him. He was tucked away in the darkest corner of a rock bar named Oblivion, the name a cruel irony. The air was thick with smoke and the ragged howl of a live band. Huo Bin was a mess, his tailored suit jacket gone, his tie loosened, and his hair disheveled. He stared into a glass of amber liquid, his knuckles white around the rim. He looked utterly lost. "Mr. Huo," Kia said softly, approaching his table. He looked up, his eyes unfocused, clouded with a pain so raw it stole her breath. The predatory gleam was gone, replaced by a deep, hollow vulnerability. "You," he slurred, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. You always find me. He gestured to the empty chair, and she sat, a silent guardian in the sea of no's. For a long while, he just stared at her, as if trying to piece together a puzzle. They say I built an empire, he whispered, his voice cracking. But what if I can't remember laying the first stone? Every morning, I look in the mirror and have to relearn the man staring back. I read my own files, my own history. It's like reading about a stranger. He let out a harsh, bitter laugh. I'm terrified that one day I'll wake up and there will be nothing left, just a name. No past. His gaze locked onto hers, desperate and pleading. No connection to anything, or anyone. This wasn't a monster. This was a man terrified of drowning in the blank spaces of his own mind. Every defense Kia had built against him crumbled. Impulsively, she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. His skin was cold. He flinched but didn't pull away. You're not a stranger, Huobin, she said, using his name for the first time without the formal title. You're here, right now. The raw confession had stripped away the CEO, leaving only the man. A current of empathy, potent and overwhelming, surged through her. She helped him out of the bar and into a taxi, his weight leaning heavily against her. As they drove along the glistening riverside road, the city lights blurring past, he turned to her, his mind momentarily clear in the sobering night air. Did we know each other? He asked, his voice barely audible before. Before college, the question struck her like a lightning bolt, rattling a memory she had long since buried. A boy with scraped knees and fierce, kind eyes. A shared secret under a willow tree. She froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. She couldn't tell him, not now. Not when he was like this. No. She lied softly, we've never met before. He simply nodded, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes, before his head slumped against the window. In that moment, she made a silent vow. She would protect him. She would protect his secret. And she would stand by the wounded man she now saw so clearly. The next morning, the fragile peace shattered. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was Lee MEI, the bitter streamer she'd failed to sign. The text was blunt. Transfer 5 million to my account, or everyone gets to see what the great CEO Huobin does after hours. Below the words were photos, grainy, intimate photos of her and Huobin. One showed her helping him into his hotel room, his arms slung around her shoulder, his face buried in her neck, a moment of support twisted into something sordid. Another, taken through a crack in the door, showed her placing a blanket over him as he slept on the sofa. Taken out of context, they looked damningly explicit. Her blood ran cold. She tried to reason, to negotiate, but it was useless. Within an hour, the internet exploded. A geisha sex scandal trended globally. News outlets ran with headlines like Huobin's indecent night and assistant climbs corporate ladder on her back. The photos, possibly manipulated to look even worse, were everywhere. The stock of IG Group plummeted. The first blow came from Huobin's mother, a woman with ice in her veins. She cornered Kia in the executive hallway, her face a mask of cold fury. My son built his reputation from nothing, she hissed, her voice low and venomous. And you, a nobody with a pretty face, destroyed it in a single night. You have ruined him. The second blow was watching Chairman Huo, a proud and formidable man, face a ravenous mob of reporters. He looked 10 years older. His shoulders slumped as he was bombarded with questions about his son's moral failings. His grave disappointment was a tangible force, crushing Kia under its weight. From across the lobby, she saw Lu Xiang, speaking to a director with a look of profound concern. But as he turned away, his eyes met hers for a fleeting second, and she saw it a flicker of triumphant glee in their depths. He was reveling in the chaos, The emergency board meeting was a slaughter. Directors who had praised Huo Bin's genius a week ago now openly called for his resignation. "This scandal has made us a laughingstock," one roared. "How can he lead Haiyu New Media when he can't even manage his personal life?" Kia stood outside the boardroom, the angry voices bleeding through the heavy oak doors. Every accusation felt like a physical strike. This was all her fault. Her attempt to help, to show a moment of kindness, had brought his world crashing down. The empathy she'd felt in the bar was now a suffocating shroud of guilt. She had wanted to protect the vulnerable man she'd discovered, but instead, she had handed his enemies the very weapon they needed to destroy him. The air in the IG Group boardroom was glacial, each polished surface reflecting the grim faces of its directors. At the head of the mahogany table, Huo Bin's mother, Lin Man, stood with the rigid posture of a plaintiff delivering a verdict. Her voice, sharp as shattered glass, sliced through the silence. "This entire scandal rests on one person's shoulders," she declared, her manicured finger pointing directly at Tang Kia, who stood near the wall, exposed and alone. "This intern, this nobody, whose incompetence has jeopardized a multi-million-dollar acquisition and made our company a laughingstock. I demand her immediate dismissal." Every eye in the room swiveled to Kia. The weight of their judgment was a physical force, pressing down on her, threatening to buckle her knees. She could feel Lu Xiang's smug satisfaction radiating from across the room. But in that crushing moment, something inside her solidified. The fear, the humiliation, the ache of betrayal, it all distilled into a cold, clear resolve. Taking a measured step forward, Kia's voice cut through the tension, steady and devoid of panic. "Director Lin is right about one thing. The responsibility is mine." A murmur rippled through the room. Huo Bin, who had been staring stonily at the table, lifted his head, his dark eyes locking onto hers with an unreadable intensity. "I take full responsibility for the misjudgment in signing Lia Mi," Kia continued, her gaze sweeping across the board members. She carefully avoided the word mistake. "CEO Huo trusted my assessment, and I failed to foresee the external manipulations at play. The fault is with my inexperience, not his leadership." She paused, letting the words land. Then she turned her focus to the bigger picture. But to abandon Haiyu New Media now would be the greater error. CEO Huo's vision for it is sound. He has pushed boundaries and endured internal resistance because he sees a future for this company that is innovative and bold, a future that some are not ready for. Her words were masterclass in deflection and defense, a subtle indictment of the very people judging him. Lu Xiang saw his opening and seized it. He rose smoothly, his expression a mask of feigned regret. "As much as I admire Miss Tang's loyalty, it doesn't change the facts. This incident has damaged investor confidence." Perhaps, he let the word hang in the air. "It is time for a change in leadership at Haiyu. For the good of the group, I propose that Huo Bin resigns from his position as CEO of the subsidiary. I would be willing to step in, to stabilize the situation and restore the board's faith." Nods of agreement followed. The sharks smelled blood. Lu Xiang's proposal was a checkmate, leveraging the scandal he had orchestrated to stage a corporate coup. All eyes turned to Huo Bin, expecting an explosion. Instead, he met their gazes with an unnerving calm. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "I agree." The room fell into a stunned silence. Even Lu Xiang seemed momentarily thrown. "I will tender my resignation from Haiyu New Media," Huo Bin stated, his voice level. He stood, his presence commanding despite the surrender. "My recent aggressive strategies were designed to draw out the rot within this company, to protect my father's legacy from threats that hide behind friendly faces and false concerns." His eyes flickered meaningfully toward Lu Xiang. "My work is done." For now, at the far end of the table, Chairman Huo, who had remained a silent observer, gave a slow, knowing nod. It was a minuscule gesture, missed by most, but it was a clear signal between father and son. A strategic sacrifice had just been made. The board, believing they had won, moved to a vote. It was a swift, clinical execution, confirming Huobin's exit. Later that afternoon, the sterile quiet of the chairman's office felt like a sanctuary after the boardroom battlefield. Chairman Huo had dismissed the meeting, but had requested Kia stay behind. He sat behind his large desk, his expression heavy with a sincerity she had never seen from him. "I have been conducting my own investigation, Miss Tang," he began, his voice raspy with regret. "I have learned of the pressure my wife put on you, and the dishonorable role Lu Mingji played in leaking those documents to frame you." He looked her in the eye, the apology plain on his face before he even spoke the words. "For the injustice you have suffered under my family's roof and within my company, I am truly sorry." The simple, direct apology disarmed her. The knot of tension in her chest, wound tight for weeks, finally began to loosen. "You have endured more in your short probation than many employees face in a decade," he continued, a flicker of admiration in his tired eyes. "You have shown not just resilience, but an unwavering integrity. That is a quality I value above all else." He picked up a document from his desk and slid it toward her. "Your termination is revoked. This is a permanent contract. You are a full-time employee of IG Group, effective immediately." Kia stared at the paper, her name printed in crisp, official lettering. It wasn't just a job. It was vindication. It was a shield. Her past hurt, the sting of public humiliation and private betrayal, was instantly transmuted into a steely, unshakable determination. She had not been broken. She had been forged. "Your responsibilities will be changing," the chairman said, pulling her from her thoughts. His tone shifted, becoming strategic. "Lu Xiong believes he has won, that he has only revealed his hand. I need someone on the inside, someone with your insight and loyalty, to help me uncover the full extent of his deception." He leaned forward, entrusting her with the weight of his next words. "The plots against Huobin are not over. Lu Mingji is still a threat. You must be vigilant. I need you to work closely with Huobin unofficially, of course. He trusts you." The statement hung in the air. "He trusts you." After everything, after the demeaning tests and the cold dismissals, that was the truth that mattered. His cruelty had been a mask, his resignation a gambit. She finally understood. They were on the same side. Armed with a new title and an unspoken alliance, Kia felt the profound sense of purpose settle over her. The storm was not over. It was just beginning. That for the first time, she was not just bracing for the rain. She was ready to command the thunder. The air by the riverside was cool and heavy with the scent of damp earth and distant city fumes. Below them, the river slid silently through the night, a dark ribbon reflecting the fractured glow of skyscrapers on the opposite bank. It was a pocket of tranquility carved out of the city's relentless hum, a place that felt forgotten by time. Huobin stood by the railing, his silhouette sharp against the urban constellation. He hadn't spoken since they'd arrived, and Tang Kia gave him the space he clearly needed. The press conference loomed less than 12 hours away, a public execution he was walking into willingly. "My mother used to bring me here," he said, his voice quiet, stripped of its usual commanding timbre. It was the voice of a man, not a CEO. "Before she left, she said the river carries away your worries if you tell them to it." He turned to her, a faint, melancholic smile on his lips. "I never believed it. Worries have a way of sticking to you." Kia watched him, seeing the weight of his legacy settle onto his shoulders. "What are you worried about now?" she asked softly. He let out a short, humorless laugh, disappointing him again. He gestured vaguely toward the distant IG Group headquarters, its logo defiant red star in the skyline. "All my life, I've been a pawn in his game. After the accident, when I woke up with pieces of my memory missing, he saw an opportunity. Not to help his son, but to mold a weapon. He told me I had to be reckless, irresponsible, a decoy. To draw out the rot in the company he was to compromise to cut out himself. The confession hung between them, raw and painful. This was the truth behind the arrogance, the cruelty, the impossible tests. It was a mask forced upon him, a role he played so well it had nearly consumed him. He never believed I could do it his way. Huobin continued, his gaze fixed on the water. He never trusted me to be a leader, only a wrecking ball. He started walking along the path, and Kia fell into step beside him. He led her toward a small, private aviary nestled in a grove of trees, a place she never knew existed. Inside, under soft ambient light, dozens of exotic birds slept on their perches. But one, a magnificent macaw with plumage like a fiery sunset, stirred as they approached. Saibao, Huobin murmured, his entire demeanor shifting. He unlatched the cage, and the bird hopped onto his outstretched arm, nuzzling against his cheek. Hey, old friend, miss me? He cooed at the parrot, his voice gentle and full of an affection she had never witnessed. He spoke to it in a soft, playful stream of consciousness, recounting little stories, teasing it with a sunflower seed. In this hidden sanctuary, the corporate titan vanished, replaced by a man radiating a pure, uncomplicated joy. The mask was gone. This was him. This was the real Huobin, unguarded and unburdened. Kia felt a profound ache in her chest, a mix of sorrow for the man he'd been forced to hide and a burgeoning warmth for the one she was seeing now. This was the man she had been defending, the one she had chosen to believe in. After a long while, he settled Saibao back onto his perch and turned to her, his eyes clear and vulnerable in the dim light.